Scholar of Spark, so 3 mana. Instants and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast, okay. Rowan Scholar of Spark deals 1 damage to each opponent. If you've drawn more than 3 cards this turn, she deals 3 damage to each opponent instead. Okay. -4, you get an emblem. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 2. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose targets for that copy. Okay, that's pretty good. It takes you 3 turns to get there, to get that emblem. So I think that's fair. And I don't feel like it immediately ends the game. It does give you a lot of value, but it isn't a game ender. So I like this. I'm kind of a fan of this. Before we hold our judgment, let's see what the other half has to say, which is will. So again, instants of sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. It costs 5 mana to cast it on this side. Up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness of 0-2 until your next turn. First of all, powerful ability in Commander, can wipe out commanders and huge threats. -3, draw 2 cards. -7, exile up to 5 permanents. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller creates a 4/4 red elemental token. I feel like the front half is a bit more powerful, but this will also functions more as a better controlling. So the front half functions more as damage, where will functions more as control, which I think fits together. Overall, very well designed, I have to say. Shadrix the Silver Quill is one of the new commanders from Strixhaven. Overall, I have to say that I like the design of this commander. I think there's a few interesting directions that you can take it down. So to take care of some of the more normal aspects of the stats, so it is a legendary creature, Elder Dragon. Cool. It's always cool to get a new Elder Dragon commander. It is 5 mana, which it's pretty low for a dragon, to be honest. Normally they're around 6, especially for one of the commanders. But what does it do? This is where I think Shadrix the Silver Quill has a lot of brewing potential. Here is the routes when thinking about Shadrix that I think would be a good way to take the commander. The first ability would have to be the Flying Double Strike. Just having Double Strike on a commander means that it's already pretty good for a Voltron commander. And with its base stats being a 2/5, you only need to bump it up to 10 damage, plus 10 damage to be able to deal lethal damage to any opponent. Pretty reasonable. Maybe don't make that the super theme of the deck, though. Just make it like a sub-theme. The other interesting ability from Shadrix would have to be its beginning combat ability. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, so only once per turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player. So you have to target one of 2 players. It doesn't have to be you, but if it is you, you can't target both at you. So it's always you or an opponent, or 2 opponents and not you. And there is 3 modes that you can choose. The first mode being target player creates a 2/1 white-black Inkling creature token with flying. First of all, I do like how they have Inkling. It would be cool if that kind of becomes a tribe, because I think it would just be funny, but I doubt it. The second ability is target player draws a card and loses 1 life. I think this may be one of the more underrated abilities, because if your opponent is at a low enough life total, you can actually make him draw cards and lose life. But overall, this is probably that's probably more of a later use of that ability. And the final ability is target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. So with those abilities, what deck can you build? My first thought would have to be an Orzhov Death and Taxes type of deck, where you have, basically you give your opponent stuff, but you tax them for having that stuff. How I would do that, I'm not sure, but you could use this very much as a political commander, and if you play your cards right, you could be like, hey, you seem to be getting attacked a lot. How about I give you a token? In return, help me out with something. See what I mean? There's a lot of interesting political directions you can take this commander. Overall, I have to say this is a commander I 100% want to brew around. Cosmina Enigma Sage. First thing to note, it is a 3-mana Simic commander. Everyone's first thought when they think of it is Oko. But I don't feel like this card will be as broken. I think it may see some play, but even then, that's not necessarily for sure. So, what is its abilities? It has a static ability. Each other planeswalker you control gains the loyalty abilities of this planeswalker. So, right there, that kind of sets off a red flag. So, if it has powerful abilities, that could be a problem. But also, it's forcing you to run more planeswalkers. So, depending on the deck, that may not work. But what is its ability? For +2, scry 1. That does make it so you can ultimate faster. So, I guess in a control deck, that's maybe good. And it does give some of the War of the Spark cards a plus, which I don't need, but I still don't think it will be as broken as people say. And maybe I have to eat my words later. Who knows? Its -X is create a 0/0 green blue fractal creature token and put X +1/+1 counters on it. Okay, so it's just creating a token, not anything new or out of the ordinary. And -8, search your library for an instant or sorcery card that shares a color with this planeswalker. Exile that card, then shuffle. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. See, that's a broken ability, but it's 8, and it starts with 2 loyalty. Sure, it can be given to other planeswalkers, but it's still 8 loyalty, and there's very few planeswalkers that start out that way. I feel like this will be a good planeswalker. I don't feel like it will be as broken as people say. I want it for my Super Friends deck, though, because I feel like it would be good in that style. So it is for X and a black, return target planeswalker card with the mana value of X or less from your graveyard onto the battlefield, or remove X loyalty counters from target planeswalker and opponent's controls. Interesting card, but I want to pay attention to that, just the whole design of the card. First of all, it's talking about Gideon's sacrifice. So for those of you who aren't in the know, Gideon is canonically dead. He died in War of the Spark trying to protect Liliana from the backlash of the curse that she induced. Saving Liliana but killing Gideon is summarized that Liliana feels guilty about this, and I think this is what the card's talking about, where she's like, why did you do this? Kind of like, even the flavor text says, why Gideon? Of all people, why save me? Where she's saying, look, you could have saved anyone. You could have saved Jace, you could have saved Vraska, but you saved me. Even still, I do like the interesting direction they're taking Liliana's character. It will be interesting to see if there's a sort of redemption arc. I mean, Liliana was never a wholly bad character, but she was never a wholly good character. She was always, I don't know, I feel like sometimes she's evil, sometimes she's not. She's a very chaotic character. So this is the new Liliana Planeswalker. On Magecraft, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Amazing card. Amazing card just off of that alone. That can win games. In a Storm deck, you want to put Liliana in, or Professor Own It. Just that ability, without reading it, I love the card. Love the card, love the design. It is interesting that Liliana's a professor, by the way. So for her +1 ability is you lose 1 life, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. So you get to choose which goes into your hand, which goes into your graveyard. That's pretty good too. It allows you to filter through your deck, find the cards you want, and maybe even put cards that you want to go into the graveyard. Her -3, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls. Amazing removal spell. All the second minus abilities need to be removal spells, and I think this one helps get rid of the biggest threat most of the time. And then for her ultimate, -8, each opponent may discard a card. If they don't, they lose 3 life. Repeat this process 6 more times. I feel like you're not planning on using this ultimate that often, but even then it's still really good. I do like it. It does give your opponents choices, which always means that they're going to choose what's best for them. So it isn't the best ultimate, it isn't always a game winner, but it can be a game winner. And most of the time I feel like it will be. So overall, amazing flavor card. I do think this card will be a pretty penny though. Especially in like a Dimir control deck or something.